5 minutes past 8 Central African time, and you tuned into News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidire. And we'll be kickstarting the show with a very, very important conversation: land. It remains one of South Africa's most contested and emotional issues. And nearly 3 decades after democracy, while government-led land reforms have faced a lot of criticism over their pace and impact, a newly launched movement, Vuka Azania, says is taking a different approach that is backed by donor funding. The initiative aims to expand Black land ownership and drive economic empowerment through community-led projects rather than state intervention alone. But who is behind the initiative? Where is funding coming from, and can it succeed where previous efforts have struggled? Efforts, some or many, being led by the state. To help us unpack and answer some of those questions, we're joined by renowned Cleric, anti-apartheid activist, and one of the movement's leading voices, Dr. Allan Boesak. Dr. Boesak, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Good morning, Salero. Good to see you again, and good morning to all your viewers and listeners as well.
Pleasure is all ours. I want to jump right into it. For our listeners who are hearing about Vuka Azania for the first time, can you just give us some insight? What is the vision behind this movement? Why did you guys feel now was the right time to launch it? And what exactly is it? Is it a civil society movement? Is it a political party? What is it?
Well, Vuka Azania was established, as you know, and announced to the public last week, Friday. And since then, we have gotten overwhelmingly positive and encouraging responses from the public across the country. It's been something that we have been working on, Salelo, for some time now. You will remember over the last 3 years, I've been trekking across the country at the invitation of organizations and faith formations and churches and so forth to talk about the issues that have become such deep-seated and frightening crises in South Africa. How do we analyze that? How do we understand those crises? What are the root causes? What are the solutions that we can bring? And one of the ways in which we thought is we have to bring people together. We have to gather our people in civil society from the faith formations, from organizations that already exist. And many of them are already deeply engaged in separate issues, but those issues sometimes turn into silos and people don't know how to work together. Vuka Azania is a proposal to our people to say, bring the issues, bring the causes, bring the concerns, bring your intelligence, bring your dreams, bring your hopes. Let's all put it together and let us tackle the issues of the country together. Land, of course, is not only one of those issues, it's very foundational. And the people behind it are Advocate Sikakani, a very, very well-known and articulate senior counsel, a legal person, Professor Isaac Shai, who is a legal practitioner, Mr. Arthur Fraser, who comes from government, and myself. And we have found one another in our conversations over the last year or so. And we have decided now is the time to make clear to the public that there is going to be a vehicle that we can all hopefully rally under, come together, find the common purpose and find the solutions that we now know our country needs so desperately. That's where Vuka Azania. And so Vuka Azania is a wake-up call to our people. It is now the time to come together. And we know that we have done this before in South Africa. It's not something illusional. It's not just something that we hope might happen. We have done this before. The South African public has the ability to come together and to bring the formations together and to put together an agenda that will certainly do what we hope to do, and that is dismantle the present unjust structures and systems that give our people so much suffering and grief, and replace those with systems and structures and ideas that will take the country forward out of the mess that we find ourselves in right now.
And you briefly touched on what was going to be my next question. As you mentioned, the issue of land reform has dominated South African politics for years now. What makes Vuka Azania fundamentally different from previous land reform initiatives? You mentioned that we've been here before. There's been political parties, there's been civil society movements that wanted to focus on land, but for some reason they failed to stand the test of time. Vuka Azania, what's the foundational difference from the other previous land reform initiatives?
Well, firstly, I mean, I think that those first formations failed because, as I pointed out before, you will find that many of these efforts were almost isolated efforts, driven or either by individuals or by individuals within political parties or in political parties themselves, or organizations that have not found a way to bring their efforts together. It's like there are fires all over, but the fires all over are little fires, and they don't make much impact. You got to bring and bring one huge fire to the issue. That's number one. Number two, the land is really a foundational issue for us, as it is for all South Africans. And so we are looking at the question of land, not just historically, in the sense that we say, for us, the struggle for land does not begin, as many people would think, in 1913 with the first Land Act, or in 1936 with the second Land Act, or in 1950 with the Group Areas Act, which sort of were the efforts from the white power structures in South Africa to give legal substance to what they have illegally done in stealing the land. That begins way back in 1652. So 1652, and the original owners of the land, the indigenous people, that is the absolute departure point for where we start. That's number one. And so second point is, why do we have then a constitution that conveniently ignores the origin of the struggle for land in this country, ignores the original people who own the land, and begin almost as if say, okay, let's walk up the stairs, but you want to begin with step number 9 and forget there's some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that you have. So start where it belongs. And so we are going to have a very, very critical look at our constitution, and not just section 25. And that's the other thing. People look at the constitution and they say, oh, the problem with the constitution and the land is section 25, which is the protection of private property. Now, there's a difference between a conversation about who owns the land and a conversation about who are the owners of private property. Now, if that is your point of departure, then you'll always land up in a situation where white people who stole the land when they came here in 1652 and got away with it, in the Constitution and in this new democratic dispensation, they will always, like they have now, more than 70% of the land. That is untenable, it is unjust, it is not acceptable at all to us. And so we have to begin dress, but we ask the question really also with the preamble of the Constitution. Why do we have a Constitution that does not acknowledge our fight against colonialism, our fight against imperialism, our fight against apartheid? So it's not just sections in the Constitution. It is the foundation upon which the South African Constitution rests that we think needs to be addressed. And that is going to be an effort that I think will make a fundamental change. And so that's one of the reasons why. Number 3, I think that by now, many with the fight about the land in a theoretical fashion and the onslaught upon people who raise questions about the land, it is becoming clear that the land issue is going to be the determining issue as how we move forward. I live in the Western Cape, Salelo, and people will understand that here in the Western Cape, we are fighting a so-called independent movement, started by the Democratic Alliance and now taken up by the so-called independent movement for the Cape, driven by some white person from Britain who's not even a South African citizen, whom the IEC actually gave the right to form some political party. Where they get that from, we do not know. And so that's why the Constitution remains important to be critically looked at. And so we're in the Western Cape. We are now all of a sudden confronted with a movement that wants the Western Cape to redraw the boundaries of the provinces, to go back to the Western Cape original apartheid borders, let me use the word borders, that existed, and who now want to bring the Western Cape in as a separate breakaway from the rest of South Africa, as a separate country, basically under white Zionist rule. That is what we are facing here. And so the issue is an important issue. It's a life-threatening issue. And it's not just a question of people in the Western Cape. This is a question for the people of South Africa as a whole. And Vuka Azania has resolved that this is therefore a foundational issue upon which we will build this movement, and from where all of our other activities will sprout.
I want us to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to some of government's land reform programs and whether or not Vuka Azania intends to complement some of those efforts, or does it reflect almost, should I say, a lack of confidence in some of the state's ability to deliver? And once again, answer the question, Dr. Boesak, when we return, is this a political party?
Oh, yeah.
But we'll do that when we return.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Right now, over 150 million children around the world are orphaned, facing hunger, hardship, and uncertainty. With Islamic Relief's Orphan Sponsorship Program, you can provide a child with access to education, nutritious food, essential healthcare, and a safe home. Your sponsorship is not just support, it's hope, security, and a brighter future. Be the reason an orphan child smiles again. Sponsor an orphan today with Islamic Relief.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Are you banking with convenience, transparency, and flexibility? With Al Barakah Bank's transactional banking account, you can enjoy convenient everyday banking designed around your needs. Benefit from zero fees on point-of-sale transactions and manage your banking easily through Al Barakah's secure mobile banking app and internet banking platform. From everyday payments to managing your personal or business banking, Al Barakah makes banking simple, transparent, and convenient. Visit albarakah.co.za to learn more. Al Barakah, your partner bank. Al Barakah Bank Limited is an authorized financial services and credit provider.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
90 minutes past 8 Central African time, and I'm still in conversation with Dr. Allan Boesak, anti-apartheid activist, renowned cleric. And we're having a conversation around Vuka Azania and its ambitious land ownership campaign. Dr. Boesak, thank you so much for staying with us. Before we went on to that short break, I wanted us to make it quite clear and get it out of the way. So Vuka Azania is essentially a political party, correct?
No, 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 no. Vuka Azania is not a political party. We have no plans to become a political party. Vuka Azania exists partly because our absolute disillusionment with the political structures in this country. We have no confidence in political parties whatsoever. We have no confidence in this government whatsoever. And so for us, what we are trying to build is an extra political, so I mean outside of the political structures, outside of parliament, an extra parliamentary movement, if you like, a think tank, because we believe that a genuinely intellectual approach to the problems that we have is also necessary. One doesn't just go out there and call for people to go and march in the street. We want to make sure that people, through intelligent and informative and open and transparent conversation, know exactly what it is that we are talking about, know exactly the nature of the crises that we are facing, know exactly the ways in which we hope to tackle these crises, and what it is that we want to put forward to the people of South Africa to go forward. That is why one of our first goals, beside the land issue, is to bring together our people in conversation, which some people say it must be a people's assembly. We're talking about a people's convention, something like that, where we will invite those progressive forces in our society to come together, to put our heads together, to have that very fundamental and serious conversation about where we are and where we want to go. But no political party. Personally, I have no faith whatsoever. I think the political structures in this country at the moment, from parliament on down, from the president and his office on down, are so corrupt or involved in corruption that they have no standing and they have perhaps no legitimacy anymore. So my view that I bring to the VUCA conversation is that outside of the political structures, outside of the corruptive atmosphere and environment of that, is the only way in which we can begin to approach our political issues, our social issues, our economic issues, because these are all, I mean, where do you have a government that still believes that neoliberal capitalism is an economic system that can actually deliver justice to our people? That's a totally wrong perception of what government should look like. And so we bring all of these issues together. No, not a political party whatsoever.
I want to talk about some of the land reform programs that the South African government already has. Is Vuka Azania intended to complement some of those efforts, or does it reflect a lack of confidence in the state's ability to deliver on some of the promises made with some of those reform programs having been put in place?
I almost am tempted to ask Alelo, show me a program with government intentions that have been tackled successfully, that has not been crippled by incompetence or by sheer laziness or by corruption along the way. And the end product, if it is successful, is never for our people. It's always for some small elite who benefit from whatever it is that government wants to do, but it's never to the benefit of our people. If that were true, then our people would not be sitting in this misery situation that we are now after 32, 33 years of democracy. So no, we will take a very critical look at whatever programs in terms of land reform is it. I mean, for me, and I'm talking about me, the whole idea of land reform is already problematic. What do you mean? The conversation should begin with land ownership. Who did the land belong to before 1652? That should be, not say, okay, we have now 400 years from 1652, now the land belongs to whoever it belongs to, let's talk about reform. That is is a wrong point of departure as far as we are concerned. And so we're going to take a very critical look at what exists, what initiatives there are already from the people's side, what programs there are from government side, why those programs have failed. Why, for instance, have the ANC, with its 2/3 majority for I don't know how many years, never once looked at Section 25? Why have the ANC ignored when even the courts in this country, who don't really serve the majority of the people in terms of justice, have said, but 1652 has to be the beginning of the conversation, and they simply ignored that. And so that's not incompetence, not just failure, that's a deliberate decision. Now, why have they taken that deliberate decision? Who benefits from that deliberate decision? Who has to be secured into the future through that deliberate decision? And so those are the departing points that we are looking at, and we will be critically engaging with that, and we will invite people. You have started initiatives, you have thought about this. Please come, let us sit together. Let us talk about how can this initiative be sharpened? How can we replace it? How can we bring things together? How can we make it much more effective? How can we make it politically sharp and effective to bring the political changes that we need in order so all these issues can be addressed?
The biggest criticism, when one speaks of land reform in South Africa, is the fact that it has been slowed down by a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of corruption, and just general poor post-settlement support, which is also a very, very big thing. How does Vuka Azania's model look to avoid some of those pitfalls?
Well, look, Vuka Azania has announced its existence last Friday. That announcement entails an invitation to people who have been thinking about these things for a long time. We do not pretend that we know all the solutions to all of the problems. We do not pretend that we have sat for the last 2 years working out a full program and we just say to people, oh, you just come and climb on the wagon. We have all the solutions, but we need your support. No. It's nothing like that. We are saying to the people, this is how we identify the issues. If you agree with us, let's come and sit down together. Let's join our efforts. If you have critique in the way in which we even express ourselves now, let's hear what that critique is and let's talk about it. And so, but I am very, very clear that the unwillingness of government. Look, I am one of 1 million families in this country, and my great grandfather had land in Carnarvon that belonged to the Khoi in that area. That land has been stolen. That land was so huge that there were 5 white farms established on that stolen land after my great-great-grandfather, Allan Boesak, simply disappeared after the Boer War, and nobody knows what happens to him. And and my family have been trying, we have been writing. Ramaphosa's government has not even responded with a decent letter to what we are trying to say, and otherwise they have shuffled it off to some innocuous agency that already made deals with some American company in that part of the Karoo, and you know what that means. And so for us as a family, it's a very personal thing. But it's not just my personal thing. As I say, we are merely one of so many families that are sitting with us, and it's not just bureaucracy. There is a deliberate plan to disown people, to dispossess our people still. Here in the Western Cape, every single time the Western Cape government auctions of land, it's a deliberate plan of dispossession. When they invite Zionists from Israel to come here and to come and settle here, it's a deliberate plan to dispossess our people. So you have to look at this question as a holistic question. I mentioned my family simply because it personalizes it for so many other families. But this is what we are looking at. And so this time, when we are looking at the land question, we're not going to look at it piecemeal. We're not going to look at it superficially. We're going to look at it within the grand scheme of a new liberal capitalist Zionist scheme and who benefits from it, what is happening, not just in the Western Cape, but in the country as a whole. And we are placing this within the predicament that the continent finds itself in. Why is France fighting so desperately to get rid of what is happening in the Sahel countries? It's all about who owns the land, who owns what belongs to us, who owns what is beneath the land and beneath our oceans, who lives on the land, who owns the question of real belonging. Those are the issues that we are now going to put under the spotlight, hopefully as never before.
The conversation around transparency, especially in a country like ours, will always, come forward. The movement Vuka Azania is backed by donor funding. That's what we're gathering from you guys. Who are these donors, and how can South Africans be assured that there are no political or commercial interests influencing the organization?
Well, you only have to look at the personalities involved to know that there will be no quarter given to those people with money in this country with their dubious agendas to come over and take over our agenda. That's number one. So we started this thing with money that we collected amongst ourselves. Those of us who had a little bit of money offered, and we're very grateful. We have not yet one single large contributor to talk about. We are very careful and very cautious as to how we go. Of course, we need money, but where do we go for that money? Who comes forward with what offers for what money? And so we are very, very small. We are still building a small admin structure to make sure that we get those fundamental things right. But we opened a bank account with a few thousand rand collected amongst ourselves. And so we are at the very, very beginning. The coffers are not overflowing at all at this point. And of course, we will have conversations because we know there are people in this country with money. And we also know mostly where those monies come from. We will not go to dubious sources. We will not go to sources with a political agenda. We will not go to sources who are not at one with us in the foundational principles that we have. So we look at money as a useful thing, but also as a principled thing. And we will be very clear and very careful when it comes to that. And when we enter into conversations with those people who have money or those entities who have money and who say to us, we share the goals that you are setting out for the people of this country. So be very, very clear about that as well.
Well, they have it, Dr. Allan Boesak. Thank you so much for giving us your time and for giving us insight on the Vuka Azania. We'll be closely watching how the movement morphs, evolves, and hopefully it will yield the results that you guys are seeking. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Alelo, and good morning to you and your listeners as well. Thank you.
There we go. Dr. Allan Boesak, Cleric, anti-apartheid activist and leading voice behind the newly launched Vuka Azania movement. And discussing their vision to expand land ownership and economic empowerment through donor-backed community initiatives. We'll see if it yields results. We hope that it does, because land, as I mentioned in my intro 30 years on, is still one of the most critical sore points of post-democratic South Africa. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you after this.